Sunshine, you're very small in the camera angle. Let me make you bigger.
I'm just so teeny tiny and petite.
Drink me.
That's something I never get to be. Let me be petite.
My Amazonian co-host.
I like that. Drink me. Oh, big.
All right, what's going on? Welcome everybody, Youngstown's Talk Channel. Look at that little overlay down at the bottom right-hand corner.
Like, yeah, what is that?
It's begging people for money, I'm sure.
Studio.
It's part of our fundraising effort here.
Hey, it's a shutdown. We need it.
Yes. All right, what's on your grill? You get first strike.
Oh, gosh. I was afraid you would say that, and I don't really have anything.
It's a month into the shutdown. How have you felt the effects of said shutdown?
So we're very lucky. I've not been hugely impacted. Knock on wood. Okay. Knock on wood. I was a little concerned about like veterans benefits with this, but apparently veterans benefits haven't been touched. It's the active duty, which, you know, when you're being shot at overseas and running from bad guys, those are the ones you don't want to pay. Makes sense. But I don't know. How about you?
No, it's zero effect. I do like, I love when like disruptions happen because that's the entropy that gets things done. When we're idle and comfortable, we don't do anything. We just kind of preserve and protect our stuff. So this is like the little push that creates just enough chaos to know that some changes are going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's what's necessary sometimes, that sacrifice. I'm concerned that there are so many of the people that live amongst us that have a direct connection to an inept government that doesn't do anything right. I feel for you. And that's the wake up call to get away from the government. Do not create a dependency on them because they're stupid and they leverage you and they'll hold you hostage and they make bad decisions. So yeah, this is the wake up call to run away.
Yeah. And I keep seeing people like on social media, everybody's fighting over whose fault it is. Oh, it's the Democratic shutdown. Oh, this shows it's the Republicans' fault. Do you think that matters? Or do you think it's just, oh, let's fight over something instead of looking at the actual problem?
That basically is patronizing to the people who are low brain power, low information people. You have to say those things because all they're going to do is what you said. They're going to parrot and they're going to accept it. They're not going to think it through. They have no common sense or they have a total lack of intelligence. And so that works. And if the more people you have that are dumb, the more that stuff resonates. So I don't blame them for saying it because think about how many people they could say, you know, wearing a glove on your right hand may give you magical powers and how many of the public would just be wearing gloves the next day. It's not a real smart society that we're in right now.
And when you hear people talk about, I'd love to break down the idea of, you know, SNAP benefits, government assistance is one of the things that people are really sort of feeling the effects. And everybody, I feel like, wants to fight over, well, who's taking away these benefits? Well, how mean is it that nobody cares for these people? And you want to say they're lazy when they're not really lazy. Like, what is the setup of someone needing to live off the government and be completely reliant on them? And can we walk that back? Can we get them off of that? Or do you think some people are too far gone?
Okay, so the deal with politics in general is you create these complicated no-win situations. Okay, so let's just say you took a whole city and nobody was setting up businesses, so you subsidized them all and gave them all free money to open businesses. Well, those businesses aren't freaking real because without the money that they're being given, right, they would not be there. There's positive effects to it where now you have a place that otherwise wouldn't be there and you can shop there and then you get dependent on a business that's artificial. And so the real question is, do we like to deal with reality and truth, or do we like having the illusion and artificial everything? So people that are, being subsidized by another thing, they have to realize that that stuff's not real and try not to be dependent on it. So if I opened up a shop and 100% of my revenue, we'll go right up the road because I know of a business right now that is 100% subsidized by grants because of who they are. Right? They have never had to operate where they had to pay enough or they had to sell enough stuff to pay all of their bills and to actually stay in business. But at some point you're like, well, what if someday somebody doesn't give me that check? right?
Mhm.
I'm going to have to operate with just what I can sell. And so on day one, maybe you're 100%, and the next day you're at 90%. And maybe eventually you get to the point where you don't even need the subsidy. And now you get to break free from the teat, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, then you're like really mad when your subsidy doesn't roll in. And we have so many people addicted to that trough. It's not just SNAP benefits, people. Look around everywhere. Think about how many academic research is being subsidized that couldn't stand on its own. Businesses, like if there are more people that are inauthentic, AstroTurf, right? Then there are people that are actually doing the thing authentically, then it would behoove me. So if I had to decide one day, I see all of my competition, they're all getting grants. They don't have to worry about making payrolls or selling enough product. I can just go to the grant. How long before I'm just like, well, it's easier. I'm just going to freaking do it too.
Yeah. And I've seen that in other places. Like we've talked before about unemployment, people that have had to get on unemployment benefits when they lost their job. And I remember years ago, there was a time I was in an industry that was just, everybody knew there are layoffs all the time. And they tell you when they lay you off, just go get unemployment until things are better, yada, yada, yada. Well, in order to do that, there are certain things you have to do. You have to be actively looking for a job. You have to do this and that. And I'm like, I could totally see how someone's like, why don't I just keep doing this?
That's exactly right.
Why would I look for a job?
There is a segment of the population would see that as a blessing, that they don't have to do something and they can get the reward anyway. And we've cultured a bunch of those people just to have that mentality. And so, again, you said you were going to give me a check. I believed you. I wrap my entire life around, I wake up at 8 o'clock and watch everybody go to work, and I don't, and I still get a check, and I can, maybe it's not great living, right? But at least it's a free check that I could go buy food and whatever. And so again, I think, especially the Democrats, the liberals, especially, the dependence is their livelihood. The more people they can get as a soldier in their army of getting without giving, right? Mm-hmm. The more powerful they become. So they are incentivized to create more dependence, not less.
Yeah, I saw this video yesterday. Oh, I almost sent it to you. I should have. It was a guy saying, what is it? The Department of Agriculture or something is responsible for handing out so many hundreds of thousands of meals. And they say, look at all the meals that we handed out to people. And it's the same people that are over like different wildlife reservations, and they say, please don't feed the animals. They will become dependent on it.
Right.
And then they won't be able to hunt for themselves.
Exactly.
And he's like,
you have that epiphany, but think about how many people have been neutered in their survival instincts because they become so dependent on their sugar daddies to just pay for everything that they need, and how mad they get when they don't have access to the free thing anymore. Once you feed them, they need you forever, and thus you rip it away, and then they're confused. Some of them will die. Some of them will experience huge peril because they don't know how to make it on their own.
If we could, like you say, get in your time machine and go back and not have this, we don't have government assistance. Mm-hmm. Do you think we would have an increase in crime and theft or resiliency and people just not needing it?
Oh, people would figure it out. We're adaptable creatures biologically. But if it took you 20 years to get in the situation you're in, could you stomach 20 years of people figuring it out and be willing to deal with the devastation? So like in my example of, when you get a free thing, it's got to have lots of strings attached, and not just strings that stave off, fraud and abuse of a system. It means that if you need food, okay, so with the IRS, we understand this. Mm-hmm. Right? We have an auditor that will come to you and help you figure out why you're not doing the right thing. Right? Mm-hmm. And so if you had a assistance auditor and you're like, let's just say 30 days, you get in trouble, you can get food, no audit whatsoever. We give you everything you need for that 30 days. If you're in peril on day 31, we send somebody out to you and figure out why you're in peril. Right? And help you change, just like the firefighter responds to the fire. They put on their uniform, they go in, they audit you, they look at what you're doing, the decisions you're making, and try to help you not need the assistance, not stay on the assistance for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, don't we do that like with things like insurance where, hey, you want a good rate? Show me precautions you're
Yeah,
taking.
exactly. And we reward good behaviors and good decisions, and we make it super hard to make terrible bad decisions. We don't just let this, we're going to send a free check. The strings that we're going to put on it, you're just going to figure out how to work around those strings. We never give you a mentor that helps you make different decisions. We hide the logic and the rationale into not being in that situation. I mean, look at what we did with the school thing, right? We give you 3 data points that put you in the 95% chance of getting the prosperity, and look at the pushback on just giving you 3 data points.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's like, you're going to get to look in your refrigerator right now and look at the food that you have to eat. Do you have enough to feed you and your family, whatever? Right. And you look and say, oh, I've got 3 days worth and I need 5. Cool. Should you go get your hair done and your nails done, buy a new iPhone, and buy tobacco and alcohol? Or should you go to the grocery store first and fill in the rest of your needs before you start adding luxuries?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's just real talk. And everybody with common sense knows that if you get to the end of the whole survival part and you don't have enough for those other things, now you're living like the rest of the world is.
Oh, my husband and I were just talking this morning about the idea of inflation and people saying, oh, inflation is killing us. And back in my day, like my dad was the only one who worked and the mother could stay home and you could buy a house and run a household. And we're like, there's some data there to make that point. But we're like, but God, look at everything we do now that they didn't do. Like, do you have to go and buy your Starbucks coffee every day? No, they did it at home. How about going out to eat? They ate at home. How about hand-me-down clothes? Not, oh, I have to have a new outfit for everything I do. You know, like all these little things. You didn't pay for internet regularly. You didn't pay for streaming regularly. You didn't pay for all these different things. And so, yeah, it's almost like we've become accustomed to things we have to have, but do we actually have to have them?
So if it was authentic, and that's why I say all of this is fake, because when somebody gives you something, you're inauthentically enjoying a luxury that you didn't purge. You didn't earn it. And so, when you have so many people, they're acting different than their wage, right? People who can afford stuff, they have stuff. But if we decide that people who can't afford it should get it too, that's when we break the system and we astroturf what their luxury should be. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those luxuries exist outside of survival. And so if we're talking about survival, not being able to eat, there should be 0 luxuries in your life until you figure out step 1, you are the primary provider to you, right? Mm-hmm. You have to feed yourself. So number 2, you have to have some place to live. And you don't ever get to air conditioning and cell phone and any of those things, right? You can go without a TV. You can go without things that are unnecessary until you figure out step 1, which is staying alive without somebody having a tube to you feeding you the stuff you need.
Yeah.
That's just a reality. All right. You mean like how Tesla only survived because of electric car subsidies? I will agree. I don't agree with subsidies at all. Okay. I understand why government does it. They take a pet project, one that will not be able to survive on its own. And they prime the pump. So if your agriculture needs it, or, a certain industry needs it, short-term subsidies, I don't disagree with. Now, if you think that Tesla cannot come off of the government subsidy deal, like you can get a $7,500 rebate on buying an electric car because politicians wanted people to go green. It was part of the climate initiative. And now that they don't need it, now they don't need the subsidies anymore.
Put an end date on it.
But if the government's like, well, no, we need some more, even though the Tesla can afford it, right? Or Tesla doesn't need it. They can afford their own model because of that. We still want people to buy it, and the subsidies more to influence the consumer, not because the end product. See, there's a hidden agenda in statements like that. Because Tesla can afford it, should they then lower their price to $7,500 less because they can afford it, right? And again, they shouldn't have to. They can charge whatever they want. And if you took the subsidy away, if car sales dropped and then they had to lower their prices to attract new buyers, that's a completely different conversation. But I don't think car buying subsidy should exist. I don't think it's not, now in Tesla's deal, would they have been successful in the shorter amount of time without the subsidies? I'm sure it expedited their growth, and the people who issued the subsidies, they won. That's what they wanted to happen, is sell a bunch of battery and electric cars. So I understand why it happens. I don't agree with it that it happens so often. It gives an unfair advantage to certain companies over others. And I don't think the government should be in the business of picking winners and losers.
I say they're kind of like picking favorites.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then Donnie says, look at the people up and the Senate and the Congress, they're doing like double dipping. And yeah, we talked last week about, whether or not politicians should be paid for not working. And I'm the believer that nobody should be paid without working. I think AI and algorithms in the future are basically going to evaluate when you're putting value into the marketplace and pay you when you put value and don't pay you when you're not putting value. And that goes with, if a politician's going to show up for the meter's not running, like you're in the cab, right? The meter's running when you're in the cab. The meter's not running when you're not there. And that would be authentic. Yeah.
To me, that is the most, what's the word? I don't even know the word you want to use. It's the most ridiculous. It's the most like the gall they have. When we find about like term limits and, people accusing Trump of wanting to run again and having people that are serving for too long and all things like that. I don't even care about that stuff as much as I care about the fact that all of you people that are in the decision-making realm of whether or not to shut down the government and stop paying Americans are still being paid. That you all get off scot-free when it's you affecting this.
Well, do you think
it's so ridiculous?
Do you think that would change anything? We got multimillionaires that are in Congress. You stop their paychecks, they don't give two shits about the money that's coming in the paycheck. They are taken care of.
What if we say, if this is your position and this is a way that a position you're going to hold for a salary, then all of your pay stops. Everything.
That's fine.
Whether you're getting it from us, whether you're getting it from this other corporate industry, whether it's whatever, if you are a representative and this decision is on you, all of your income stops until this is done. And if you don't like that, don't run. Don't be a rep. Don't be in this position.
It would make us feel good, but it wouldn't really do anything. That's really it. It would say, see, now you're not.
You don't think they would work a little harder or do anything?
They would not care.
If none of their income was coming in, they would not care.
Well, the income that comes in their paycheck for their federal salary is nothing compared to all of the other money streams that are not controlled by something you can stop from happening. And they'll find a million different ways to get paid. Bag of cash, here's $50,000, right?
I'll just take a bribe and then do something.
It would change nothing, right? All it would do.
Well, it would make me feel better.
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. A little bit. It would make you feel better. Great. It wouldn't do anything.
Yeah. Matthew says, how can you criticize liberals for being too reliant on government assistance when it's the blue states whose taxes fund the poor red states?
Well, it's just a math thing where you have population densities of states. So you have more people living in those places that kick itself out into the government. So if I say I want to cut a government expense, I don't really care what your position is. I don't care about your political affiliation. I'm cutting an expense and it applies to everybody uniformly, right? Mm-hmm. If there are more Republicans on assistance, that's not going to persuade me. But if your philosophy, right, the liberal Democrat philosophy benefits and is incentivized to having more dependence on the system. So they are happy even if there are Republicans on it, because if you want to look at, I want to capture healthcare and make it free. I want to do universal basic income. It is giving free stuff to people so they will vote for them. That's incentivizing the philosophy of getting more people on systems. The conservatives and spending less money means that, hey, I know I got, red states and people voting in this, and they're collecting those checks. They're doing it in spite of it benefiting from them want to limit the expenses on their own voters. So I'm like, that's a harder thing to do because less people will vote for you if you do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, and they manipulate you by making it this emotional tie of, oh, one side is mean. They're taking something. We're trying to help you. We're giving you this benefit. We want to see you do well here. So we're just going to set you up for success by giving you all these things. And they're the mean ones who want to take it away. When really it's like they're crippling you. The whole don't feed the animals. They won't know how to feed themselves kind of thing. Like they're crippling you by giving you everything. And now you have no reason to not have their help. And if we're in a situation like we are now, that help is suddenly taken from you, you're screwed. You're screwed. You have nothing else. The one side doesn't want you to ever be in that position. We want you to be self-reliant so that you can thrive and you're not so vulnerable. The other will keep you vulnerable and say anyone else trying to help you is a bad guy.
But the second part of this is that there has to be an appeal for the ambition and the adaptability of human beings. So at the same time, let's just say we spill 200,000 people, we just make them unemployed, like across government, across private entities, unemployment, 200,000 people. So you have 200,000 people that had a job and now they don't. For the marketplace, that's amazing. You release talent from bad endeavors and you give a chance for someone who's been looking for that talent that got locked up in an industry that was being subsidized or whatever. And now they're free to go into the marketplace and fill in gaps on places that are working out. Right. So that's a blessing to those people who can now, adopt in that extra talent. Now, but the sensibilities are that there's going to be a percentage of the people who didn't like really working anyway. And so they have talent, but they're uninterested in surviving because there's so many safety nets. They really don't have to do it. So now the marketplace is then starved of the talent that they could get because your systems inspire people that just lost their job to not immediately go out and try to fill in those gaps in the marketplace. So theoretically it works, but there's a second part of it. We got to line that new talent that gets spilled out in the marketplace to find places that desperately need that talent. And that's missing.
Yeah. Donnie says people living beyond their mean. Yep. People living beyond their means has happened since forever. This isn't new.
But other people paying for it does. So if, let's just say, what if you got in a bad spot and the government paid for your stuff, but it was issued in a loan, right? They give you, like Tesla, when they needed money at the startup, it was issued a loan and they got them by for a number of years and then they paid back the loan to the government. So if you go on food stamps, you got 10 years to pay what we gave you in food stamps back. So it doesn't become financed and granted by the taxpayer. It's still your, it's your food. You ate it. You got to live it. It's your liability. If you couldn't pay it, we're not going to let you die. But now you've got this debt that you got to service for the, next 10 years or so. That would change it because then go ahead, live beyond your means, buy stuff that you actually don't need.
Yeah.
You're just going to accumulate lots of debt on your own and it's going to be an anchor to you.
If you're only hurting yourself, you're only hurting yourself. But if you're hurting other people who then have to save you,
yeah,
you don't really have the right to do that.
If you have to pay for it and it is your, irresponsibility, then fine. Nobody is going to question whether or not you want to live beyond your means or not. You're just making it harder on yourself.
Yeah. Matthew says it's not accusations of running again when Steve Bannon, to close Trump alley, goes out and says Trump will be president in 28. We've discussed this internally and we have plans.
You're being trolled. Steve Bannon, if you followed Steve Bannon's career, the dude he's not a great individual. He's, he knows what he's doing as far as strategy goes, and he's distracting you and making you upset about something that is not going to happen. So it's going to be Vance and probably Gavin Newsom in 28 running head to head.
Yeah.
And how about this? Anybody who claims that's what's going to happen, Trump's going to seek a third term, put money on it right now. I'll take $1,000 to your guess. We'll put it in an envelope. We'll mark this day down. You thought he was going to do it. See how much conviction you have on that, that line, right?
Yeah.
Put money on it with me.
Even if Trump wanted to, he can't. Can he?
He could, right? The methods and the requirements have been changed over time. So if Congress decided to make a little bit of change and say, constitutionally, the president can run for a third term, there's a process they would have to take it to all of the states, just like every time a constitution is altered or amendments are made, you'd have to go through that process. So technically, he could do that. I just don't think it's worthwhile. The dude's in his 80s.
Yeah.
Right. And he's served 2 terms already. So it's a tactic to make Democrats distracted and crazy about something.
Because again, if he is able to do it legally, procedurally, it can be done. Is that a Trump thing? Or is that a system thing? Like, everyone's like, oh, he's so horrible. He wants to run for a third term. Well, could he? Yeah, he could. Well, then that's the system is set up that way.
Due process, right?
So why is he the bad guy? Like,
they don't like him. I don't know if you know this. The Democrats do not like Trump. So
starting to see
just the prospect of another term makes them insane. So you can see taking one of their fears, like, oh, he can't run again. At least he's out of here in 3 years. If you say he's going to run again, it's like, no, not another 4 years of this guy.
Well, and this is why I always say the Dems, everything they try to do falls on deaf ears because they keep fighting with these things that like half of the country, probably at least half, if not more than half, would be like, don't threaten me with a good time. Like, look, he's gonna make it so he can run again. Half of your audience is like, okay, they'd probably love it.
Yeah.
It's like, find something that holds weight. Find something that like is an actual detriment or benefit to the American people as a whole. They keep picking these like emotional battles that they have no chance of winning at because either the majority of the people don't care or it's completely false anyways and it'll never happen.
But it's just something to make themselves go crazy. It is more likely that JD Vance is an understudy and everything that Trump is doing is just going to be carried on because that Republicans, the reason they're talking about this is a lot of the strategies and a lot of their policies right now are going to require more than just 3 years. So some of these things aren't even worth starting if there's not another term after this one. So continuation of the Trump ideals is more important. Whether or not Trump is the only guy to do it, it's more likely that he makes JD Vance and JD Vance learns from him and finds out how he's effective in the ways that he is. So it can be continued into, what would be another Trump term will be a Trump term, not only in name, not in, he's the one in the executive chair.
Let's see. Danyi says, well, that needs to stop. If you're not doing your job, you're not getting paid. I
think that should be across the board. Anybody who is not currently working, the meter should not be running.
Mm-hmm.
Private, public, government, everywhere.
So if people are incentivized to collect government checks are more in red states. Yes. That just tells me conservatives are just more reliant on the government.
It just tells me that if you build a trough big enough that anybody who sees free money, I know this is kind of common sense.
Yeah.
Put $100 bills on a table out there, right? And I will point out that people who don't need them will eventually take the $100 bills. I don't care who they are. I know human beings. And if there is a, I've got to pay for it and it is free. So I got a table set up, free bagels, $2 bagels. Even if I believe, right, that people should pay for their own bagels, but I'm in the position where I can either see a table that I can get something for nothing or one that I have to pay for it. No matter what my principles are, what do you think I'm tempted to do?
Yeah.
You create a system, it tempts people in that want to get something for nothing because that only makes sense. So you have 2 choices, right? Find an inconsistency in principle where Republicans who don't believe in assistance take advantage of it, even though they believe that there shouldn't be a lot of it. So, but only apply that to the Republicans rather than human nature in general, or strip away and not make it an option. And there is no free bagels. The only thing you got is the $1 bagels. Have fun.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are your 2 choices.
No, he couldn't. Is that no, he couldn't actually end up running? He served 2 terms. He can't. End of story.
Amen.
It's against the Constitution. Well, again, but that's kind of my point, Matthew. Then why fight that so hard? Why is that such a strong? You just said he can't do it. He can't do it. But the Dems will use that as this like point of contention or like reason for them to run on these ideas of, oh, look what he's going to do. And this is such a terrible thing. But then in the same breath, he's like, but he can't do it. Well, then let's move on. Like, then why are we still on this?
But it should be the origin of a curiosity, because there's circumstances like, let's just say World War III breaks out. Okay.
Mhm.
And the president of the United States' term is up. Then we have to decide whether or not in the midst of a war, whether or not we're, want to have an election and change out leadership when we're in the middle of the war. So we say, hey, let's do our election after this war. Well, that gives an incentive then the president to go start a war so he could stay as president. So it's an origin of a curiosity. If you start seeing those things happen, putting stopgaps in to make sure that a war is not begun for the sake of extending it.
Yeah.
But I don't think he wants to be president. I think the troll in chief is just doing it and saying it to make people crazy. And that's all of the evidence that I've got to this point, where he's not really serious about wanting a third term.
Because and he may or may not be serious. I honestly don't know, but this is another like boy who cries wolf for me personally. We've heard people say that Trump said or wanted something so many times when everybody else knew he was kidding, or it was just like a remark he made while talking about something else. Or, oh yeah, that'd be nice. So yeah, wouldn't it be great if I ran third term? I would like that. Anywho, blah, blah, blah. And they take that for like gospel and they run headlines on it and they say, Trump wants to do this. And it was like, anybody else who heard him speak would have just chuckled and moved on.
Now, put yourself in the position of a Democrat during their fever dream. Trump is addicted to power. He is an authoritarian fascist, right? Who will never, once he's in there, he'll never leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, evidenced by the last time when there was an election, he put up a little tantrum that it wasn't fair and whatever. So the fascists were like, oh, he's going to stay. Look, watch, he's going to do it.
He won't concede.
Right? He's not going to concede. He's going to work the system. He's going to create an insurrection, take things over. So far, I have a little bit of evidence to say maybe this guy doesn't leave. But then when he actually leaves after that, you're like, oh, well, that didn't, if he was going to be a fascist, it either was an unsuccessful coup, right, for the Biden administration, or he was a blowhard and he went too far on what he bloviated to, whatever. But in reality, when it was time to move out of the White House, he did. So that's my evidence. Yeah, he probably didn't want to leave, but he did. That's the point.
He might leave kicking and screaming like a toddler, but he's leaving.
Exactly.
So find something else to run on.
Right. And that's why I don't mind that people are interested or concerned whether or not he's going to leave, but he did once already. And I'm sure that he has no interest. If you were president in his spot, going through everything that he has, there would be one part of you did some good and you'd like to see that good be continued. That would be an incentive and I'd want to do more. But would you really want to put up with all of the other shit that he has put up with for another 4 years?
In your 80s?
I'm out. Like, it's time to retire. My influence will still be made as long as I create, lieutenants in other departments. And I think the people that are in his cabinet right now can absolutely continue his ideals going forward. So I don't think he needs to stay there.
Danyi says, money runs this world. If you got enough of it, you can buy your way in anything.
I believe that.
Carter says it's called Trump derangement syndrome. Matthew says, holding your leaders accountable isn't TDS.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I think you guys go way beyond accountability. I think you've got this delusion that even when you have evidence, you can keep forging something. So if I accused you of something, then that's fair. I can accuse you. But once the proof is there and once the explanation is there, if I then go beyond that, now it's the derangement syndrome, because in spite of evidence or truth or data, right, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted you to be guilty and I kept going. So if there were Democrats that are like, hey, you know what, he's a this, and then we dig through it and we look at the data and say, oh, I was totally wrong, right? Now it just say, oh, you were very suspicious and you called him on it. You weren't a lapdog. You weren't a bootlicker. You just went and tried to challenge him. Oh, but now there's data and I was wrong. If I backed off from it, now I was holding them accountable. But when you go beyond accountability, then leads to Trump derangement syndrome. Is how
now you're the boy who cried wolf.
Exactly.
Jan says, good morning, American Patriots. Carter says, did you hold Biden accountable for 12 million illegal aliens?
That's the constitutional deal where basically we took law and we decided that we were going to not apply the law towards certain people. So we just wrote an executive order that says, hey, you know what? This whole due process for illegals, keeping them out and whatever, we're going to just not look at that. That was very unconstitutional. So what Carter's saying there is if you can turn a blind eye to the thing you want, right? Yeah. And then make sure all of a sudden you're rigid on what the Constitution says automatically. It's a little rough to swallow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's that's the two parties MO. It's okay when we're doing it and it's not okay when you're doing it.
Yeah. I didn't turn the phones on today. I don't really feel like it. So the art of the deal is based on making deals while tactics lead to a perception or use of distraction in the context of negotiations. And what I like about, and there's a lot of a psychological element. And as predicted, our society is going to become so sophisticated that the dummies amongst us are not going to really be able to figure out what's happening. They're going to buy into the illusion of, sort of like the ideals being expressed when most of it is just psychological manipulation. And when you dig through anybody's worked in a restaurant or whatever, what you experience as the consumer on something, and then you work there and see how it actually operates, how the sausage is actually being made. Yeah. We're like, okay, well, somebody crafted that illusion so that people buying there wouldn't see the sausage being made. And that's on purpose that it's like that. So if you watch the series Suits, by the way, have you ever watched it?
No, I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
So it is a good illustration of how far someone who is a logical, sophisticated thinker can manipulate outcomes based on setups, right? So you can't get something done and I can't make the decision. So I'm going to trick you into doing something so that you made the decision for me, right? And then I get an advantage because I manipulated you into doing something. You take that, the law of scale, you take that above a large scale, and how easy is it to manipulate regular middle of the road voters, right? And what our politicians are really good at is setting that up and working it to their advantage to get the things that they want. So if I pit, Republicans versus Democrats, and while they're fighting, I'm over here raping and pillaging, right? Well, I'm going to keep you distracted. That worked. That was totally successful. So I'm going to do that forever because it was an effective strategy. So that's what Jerry was saying, that when you have a system, do you believe in law, by the way? So talking about suits, lawyers, defendants, plaintiffs, do you believe that law, the push and pull of how our system works, ends up in the pursuit of justice?
Should it or does it? I mean, do I believe in law? Yes, I think there should be this system. Does it often end up in the pursuit of justice? I'm sure not. It's winning.
So do you have good lawyers and bad lawyers?
Yeah.
Okay. How could you have a bad lawyer if it was a system that sole purpose was to find truth?
Well, if they are able to manipulate or create an environment to have people believe something they want them to believe because they win and get paid, if that's the case, that's what they're going to do. I mean, if a defense attorney is like, hey, this dude might have murdered someone, I don't want to know. We're just going to defend because if we win this case, I get money. It's not really in the pursuit of truth.
But should it? If justice means that you have two people that have a story to tell, and you have people that are there to illustrate, like take all of the truths and put it before someone, so unbiased third parties could look at what's been put out, you should be able to tell a just outcome no matter what. But that system doesn't exist. It's the illusion of justice. So if I've got a good attorney, does that mean that I can bring in more people to be expert witnesses and create testimony? I know enough judges. I have enough connections to people that I could work the system over to get an outcome that somebody's paying for me to deliver. That means that if you got more money to spend, you can have a better lawyer that can give you the outcome that you're looking at. So if you're a defense attorney, your job is to win, not find truth. What if you found out, like, you don't want to know? Do you know why you don't want to know?
So that you can defend them
in any way that you possibly can. So that's sort of like the money can buy outcomes in the justice. In justice, it can do the same in politics, and it could do the same in business. Try to operate authentic, straight up, and see how much of a disadvantage that you have.
Yeah. Julie had a comment up top. Hi, Julie. She said, should our president of the United States be provoking the people like he is? Do you think he provokes people?
On purpose.
Do you think a president should provoke
There's
people?
a lot of shoulds. Like, in a perfect world, like in utopia, right? It would just be the noblest gentleman amongst us. Do we have that? No. So we have a bunch of covert idiots and overt idiots. And right now we just have an overt idiot to be coupled with all of your covert idiots.
I mean, you could say that about any of them. Like, should the president of the United States be incoherent?
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not a fair objection because of the state of all things. Like, if you were like, if you stood out because there was 99 people doing the right thing, the guy that's doing the wrong thing would be obvious, right? But if not, there's 100% of them are doing the wrong thing. There's no decorum. There's no civility. There's no truth. There's no honesty and integrity. Then the mud monster that you send there is the same that's already been there.
Yeah, they all do it. So again, chalk that up to one of my examples again of, with everything else going on, stop making points that people don't care about. It's another, you will get nowhere with this one.
In Liar Liar, remember when he couldn't tell a lie, he had to tell the truth. Like, if we could do the liar liar thing on all politicians, we just have a bunch of Trumps. They would all do and say the same thing. Because if, somebody like Chuck Schumer, what he's really thinking, he can't stop. It just comes straight out. But it's the same shit that Trump's doing and saying. They're all just fallible people with trying to, chasing down their own interests at the expense of the rest of us.
Do you want the obvious snake, or do you want the wolf in sheep's clothing? He could be polite all day long and still be slimy behind the scenes. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer to know what you're getting and have him be an open book and show you?
If Trump has downsides, I'm pretty certain I know all of them.
Yeah.
If Schumer has downsides, I bet you not half the shit that he's done that we have any idea about.
Yeah.
So, do you prefer to know all of the flaws, or have the illusion that the person has way more or way less flaws than they actually do? That's the question.
Do what we say, not as we do. That's how they run it.
Yep.
Matthew says, I don't think we should have a president who should be for all Americans, trying to gaslight and toy with half of his population. If he is just toying with people, it's bad. And if he's not, it's worse.
Yeah. And that's where elections are. If he does the wrong thing and he, condemns half the voting population, you better be certain that you don't need them as voters.
And I can't help but feel as though this personality of his, this like gaslighting and provoking and all of that, is not entirely only him. Like, I think they made him this way. I feel like he was made. Like, you can't, yes, I'm sure the arrogance is built in. Yes, I'm sure the sarcasm to an extent is built in. But if you as a human being was ridiculed or pushed back on, if your words were constantly taken out of context, if you couldn't say a single sentence without somebody twisting your words, at what point do you then stop caring and just provoke and name call and just get down to that level as well. Like, I get it. They're going to say, but the president of the United States should always uphold this and always be the bigger person and always whatever. But don't complain if you're the ones that are taking anything he says that actually makes sense and you twist it and you take it out of context and you make it look like a bad thing when it's not. And then you want us to care when he does give a little jab, when he is sarcastic, when he does provoke. We don't care when we watch someone try to be rational and upstanding and you destroy them anyways. So I'd be like, oh.
But we saw that with George W. Bush, right? George W. Bush, he spoke well. He didn't cause fights. He didn't troll people, and they beat him up, right? There was no benefit. The outcome is the same. You're going to have people fight with you. And if you don't fight back, right, then, then your Wikipedia page says that you're a freaking blithering idiot.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm sorry, it works to his advantage, because if you make him, if you engage when he lashes out or he says something and you're like, what a jerk, he's provoking us, all you do now is look like that's all you got, which is what I've been saying, is you have nothing. Like, you don't have a good policy. You don't have any change you want to make. You don't have anything you want to implement that would be helpful to the American people. All you're running on is, look what a jerk he is. He provokes us. And now you look like the incompetent one, not him. You're like giving him the ammunition to stay this way.
Yeah, that's the big mistake they're making, is there are things that you could attack Trump on that will actually resonate with what's important to voters. And you are picking the 80-20 issues that really doesn't change anybody's minds, but keeps the fights going. So let's just say you had leadership come together and say, hey, you know what? This whole thing is really beneath the office. It's beneath us to do it, and it's beneath you to do it. Let's agree that we're going to cut that shit out of there and act like adults. And we're going to get over our egos. We're going to, come together and only be noble and righteous and whatever. Right? You're going to feel like you want to gut punch me, but let's not do that anymore. Let's try to get some stuff done. That would be in effect for about 39 seconds before somebody decides they don't like playing the straight up game. They want to punch up, they want to punch down, and then you get another battle. And they're just mad that Trump is really much better at fighting these battles than previous Republican presidents were.
Yeah.
They don't like the fact that he punches back just as hard as they do.
Well, and unfortunately, I think this is going to no longer work if you do get someone like J.D. Vance in there.
100%.
I think Vance is very good at rolling his eyes, fluffing it off, and moving on. So then what are you going to do?
So if you were to give counsel to J.D. Vance and said, hey, you know what? You're going to be taking over for Trump, and you got to take this forward. You saw the way that he did it. Would you like to be more like George W. Bush, where you're the punching bag, where they try to, take your soul out and ruin you and make you seem like you're an idiot? Or do you go the Trump route, where they're going to hit you anyway, but at least you get to defend yourself and you get to strike, you get to hit back as often as you've been hit? What would you tell Vance to do? Which path?
I don't know what I would tell him to do. What I think his strong suit is fighting back in a less angry child way, if that makes sense. I've seen people say things to Vance, and he is very good at showing proof of the contrary and saying, you're just being ridiculous. This is absolute bullshit, and here's why. And it's not in a defensive, childish, making fun of way. It's kind of similar to what Trump does, but Vance kind of delivers it in maybe a more grown-up way, if that makes sense. Could that be futile? Probably. But I don't know. I feel like he might be a fairly good hybrid of being the bigger person, but not letting someone trample him, if that makes sense.
Okay. I would say it depends on the climate. And if the climate exists where you've got to be a fighter, then you want the biggest, baddest fighter that you possibly can. If things settle down and people realize that the current strategy is stupid and a time waste and doesn't get anything done, maybe you're a bridge person that makes nice and gets a lot of stuff done.
You might have to pivot.
You might
pivot. Matthew says, or did I miss one? Yeah. Matthew says you should have the occasional dissent guest on here.
Oh, I welcomed anytime. Really, we've been asking for people of that. So Matthew, if you ever want to come down here and argue with us in person, let's do it.
Open invitation.
Absolutely.
Julie says Biden's immigration policy was not a defiance of the Constitution. It was subject to federal courts multiple times and found to be part of executive privilege. We don't have to like it, but it was legal.
Okay.
No, a president of the United States should not be incoherent, which is why Biden was one term.
But we do have an amendment that could have been invoked that when you're incapacitated, that you get, the vice president to be able to step in, and that would be the due process. But nobody had they thought it would really hurt their cause if they invoked the 25th. But that's why it exists, right?
Yeah,
having capacity, but they did the end around where they just had the deep state running things for a little while, and that was big as blemish. It was a big as a blemish as not invoking.
How about this idea? And I don't know much about this, but I keep hearing like the idea of sliding in a candidate without any sort of, when Kamala Harris became the Democrats' chosen candidate.
Mm-hmm.
There are people saying that wasn't followed properly. Like there was no, like, is it primary or what's the word I'm thinking of?
No primary. So our process is that, Democrats get to elect whoever is going or nominate whoever is going to run for president.
Mm-hmm.
And what the Democrats showed is that was an illusion where they can put anyone they want in there at any time. And that could just be, fiat. So
they got to just bypass protocol and do whatever they want.
If you come out of the primaries and a couple months later your candidate's not doing so good, you could just pluck them up and put somebody who maybe is doing better, and that kind of wrecks that whole what's the purpose of a primary if you could just hand select whoever you want to put in there.
Where's the outrage there? Oh, that's right, that one benefits us, the other doesn't.
Yeah.
We don't have to twist his words. He takes care of that himself. But you do. Not you personally, Julie. I don't know. Maybe you do. When I say you, I'm saying the far left. They absolutely do. You cannot convince me otherwise. You twist the words of anyone on the opposite side that you want to disagree with. Kelin, I know you know right from wrong. You have to know Trump is bad and divisive for this country. I don't know that. I would say there was a time, Carter would love this. I would say I probably at one point had TDS and I just hated him and I didn't like his personality and I thought he needed a good punch in the face and he rubbed me the wrong way and all the things that I'm sure all these Democrats are seeing right now. I've been there. I've seen it. I get it. But what started to happen was two things. One, I no longer could rely on how I personally feel about his personality. There were bigger fish to fry. What's he going to do for military? What's he going to do for American people? What's he going to do to keep us safe from the enemy? What's he going to do in all these other situations that take precedence over, is he sarcastic? Is he a bit arrogant? And does he poke fun at people? No longer care when there are bigger things to worry about.
Well, let me reverse this on Julie and saying, I believe, and objectively, Gavin Newsom is a bad guy. If Gavin Newsom is running against JD Vance, will you vote for the bad guy? Put your feelings about his personality and his trolling and his bad management skills. I bet you'll vote for him.
Yeah, that's another thing is show me a candidate that's squeaky clean and I'll run that direction all day long. But you only have so many to choose from. Mm-hmm. So if they're all bad, again, doesn't hold weight. And I also started to see the wild exaggeration of how Trump is. That I would listen to something he said in the context in which he said it and watch exactly what the liberals did with it and what the media did with it. And that's when I really went, whoa, I can't trust them either. You could have made all these points about something he did or said, and I would have been right there with you. But it was the moment you started pointing out things that were totally false, and you just tried to make something up to make your side look good, then I don't think Trump is as bad as you make him out to be. I don't.
and again, like, I believe that anybody who plays in the sport of politics is just as bad. We just have an overt one versus a covert one. If you think, Obama's, the coup attempt, the Russiagate, the trying to get someone who was elected to not be able to run by fabricating stories about them in an attempt so that, the democracy isn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a bad guy move right there. And if he orchestrated it against a candidate, he's just as bad. He just did it on the down low where he had a lot of people protecting him. Had you known about it at the time, you'd be like, ooh, that's a bad dude. He's trying to circumvent process just because he doesn't like the guy.
Yeah. There's a big one up top. I think there's even more. Oh man, there's several we missed. Primary process. Carter says 78 million disagree with you, Julie. Dennis says they did it with Hillary and Bernie in 2016.
Yeah, they had the moment, but they had the momentum, and the establishment decided that because they were a little too left for what they thought was somebody to be elected, they sabotaged both of their campaigns as not even being an option.
Julie says Dems had 107 days to pick a new candidate. Did you hear Dems complain? Matthew says it's not a federal process for how to Democrats went about it, but they were stupid for not running a short convention. Obama himself messaged Nancy Pelosi and said, "What the F did you do?"
Yep.
Danyi says the people were not ready for a woman president, and that's basically all it was.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't either.
But you got to think of so are there people that they could put in front of voters that I could say they would do an awesome job? Like if you took, what's her name? Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is a really good example. You put her at the podium, right? And then she comes across not as a woman or, her ethnic background or her race or her gender, just the candidate would have been a good presidential.
Yeah, I would have highly considered Tulsi Gabbard.
For sure.
And the only instance that I wonder about how a female president would thrive in our country is in situations where they're dealing with other foreign leaders, the bad guys that don't want to work with women, that don't respect women, that don't think they should be in leadership positions. I feel like there could very potentially be friction between a female president of the United States trying to work with other world leaders that don't agree with women in power. Other than that, I don't know if it's us not being ready for a female. I honestly just don't think Kamala was the right female.
Yeah, they haven't put a candidate that I would say is a 1-for-1. They put a blithering idiot that, word salad's worse than I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think Hillary had a better chance than Kamala. Tulsi Gabbard could have had a better chance than Kamala. I just don't think she was good.
Yeah. And the upside downside, like if you take, maybe another country treats Tulsi different when they're going to negotiate. Well, you can say the same thing about Trump. He talks shit about every foreign leader, and then they're like, those foreign leaders aren't going to be, persuaded or encouraged when you've got this person that's shit talking half of them. What if, Switzerland, we needed some deal done and he talks shit about someone who didn't like it and now all of a sudden won't talk to him. It's the same compromise.
Yeah. Julie says you should have trusted your first instinct. What's interesting, not to discredit instinct, but when I was in that headspace, I never paid attention to politics. I couldn't tell you a single thing they wanted to do. I couldn't tell you who was running. I couldn't tell you anything about anything. I just saw Trump on the news and he looked kind of like a jerk. It wasn't until I started paying attention and getting involved that I did change my tune on Trump.
Yeah.
So what does that say? Just saying.
Think about how many other people had a really loose relationship with what politics are about, that don't look into it, that carry your hatred for a guy, really don't even know why they're hating him just because they think they're supposed to because their group hates them.
See that with RFK Jr.
Yep.
Like how many people were totally considering and giving credit to RFK Jr. when he was his own entity. Mm-hmm. And because he teamed up with Trump, now everybody, oh, now he's a crazy person. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, he's inexperienced. And it's like, you just hate Trump.
Yep.
Brian says, show me a perfectly clean politician and I'll show you a liar.
Exactly, Brian. Everybody's got skeletons. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone is a convicted rapist. Here's another one that if you were in person, Matthew, we would do a little fact checking on convicted.
Trump
rapist.
is not either.
He is not a convicted rapist.
He is not.
He is and I've seen court documents where there have been settled cases that did not end up in a conviction. Now, you'd have a better argument with whether he is a felon.
Yeah.
35, whatever. Indicted felon. And I put that in the same boat. Had you pursued those felony convictions as a 1-for-1 with every other pursuit of justice, then I would be cool. You were targeting a guy. You got some federal courts to be able to do some really creative things to be able to tag him with felonies.
Yeah.
That's lawfare felonies, and they have an asterisk on them as far as I'm concerned.
And that, again, that's going back to that whole, you're now the boy who cried wolf, and you lose people on that.
Mm-hmm.
You could have even said, but he's somebody that has been caught up in this really bad press and possible unacceptable behavior with women, and there's some interest there on what he may have done, or any of these loose talking points. And I would have said, yeah, there's some shadiness there for sure. But when you said convicted rapist, that's not true. He is not. You lost your credibility. You're the boy who cried wolf again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Julie says, I don't have much info on Newsom. If that comes about, I would definitely deep dive. Too often we have a choice between two evils.
Yeah.
Julie, I want to know, when you say you would deep dive, what is that exactly? What does that look like? What does your deep dive entail? Do you look at sources on both sides? Do you watch interviews? Do you weigh heavily on a certain news organization? I would love to know, when people say I'm going to do a deep dive, what that is.
Yeah. And I just had this conversation yesterday about confirmation bias. And, we were talking about science and looking to confirm what you already think, rather than starting with the opposition claims and digging into what you don't want to be true, but you're open. If it is, it'll have an influence on your decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you start with Gavin Newsom's awesome, give me 10 reasons why, and then you list them out and say, well, Gavin Newsom's awesome, I got exactly what I wanted. Or the other side of that is, I think Gavin Newsom's awesome. Give me the 10 biggest criticisms in them, and start with the reasons that would change your original hypothesis. In science, they do that all the time, and they have motivation to do it. And if in the political theme, if you're going to have to vote for Gavin, and so you basically just cherry pick information that makes you feel better that you're about to cast that vote, it's hard to defend against that. When at least with Trump, like when you do not have to levy untrue things against Trump. He has enough things that are already part of him. If you just hit things, like, how many times can I say to a liberal, that's not true, before I just stop listening to he's a rapist kind of thing.
And that's my point, is like, Matthew could have listed multiple things that paint him into a creeper or a potentially bad guy. But you picked one that wasn't true.
Right.
So now you lose anybody that you were trying to reach. What was I going to, there was something else I was about to say too. Oh yeah. And I find it, so many people won't even go past a headline. And I think media outlets know that. Like when RFK Jr. was all over the media because they said, oh, RFK Jr. is linking autism to circumcision. And people just shared that. Oh my gosh, what a crock, what a nutcase, what an idiot. He's linking autism to circumcision. And I was like, what? Well, let me see. What is it you're reading? And I would read the article where it directly states what he actually said. And it's not at all what the headline sounds like. But nobody cares. They don't want to deep dive. They're like, oh, well, this headline said that, it must be true. And it's like, you didn't even read the article, did you?
All right. The country is ready for a woman president, just not Kamala. She said nothing of substance regarding policy and how she would achieve those goals. She just spoke in circles with word salad.
Yeah, she didn't even do
she was not a good
interviews,
pick.
nothing.
Interesting how the Attorney General of New York is being accused of some basic thing she accused Trump of, and brought Trump to trial for. Yeah, that's an interesting one, and it shows some inconsistency, but I am not surprised and shocked. I am surprised where you could literally deliver a humbling contradiction in real time, and the person receiving it will say exactly what the other person said and not be hit with that, irony.
Yeah.
Blows my mind.
Yeah. No, people will just overlook it if it's, oh, well, that was you and this is me. And
after 20 plus years of bringing charges on Trump, was drummed up by the deep state because he was running for president. Yeah, and probabilities wise, I don't think Trump really ever wanted to be in politics. He was a business guy, had a lot of money. So the things he probably did, like if you told me Trump in 1984, was a coke fiend, I would say, okay, probably people in his industry, lots of money, were probably doing coke like crazy. I bet on that.
Surrounded by young girls, women.
Probably having sex with a bunch of people. Yeah, that would be who he was in that era, and that was the era as we have an understanding of it. People who were crafted in politics, they did the same stuff, but they didn't do it so outwardly.
Yeah.
Right. And so there were probably coke fiends like, Hunter Biden that were doing it, but they were under the protections of people who were, preserving their image.
Yeah. It's like he came from an industry that it was maybe more overlooked to be sort of this playboy,
exactly.
It may have even been good for him to have that image.
He was this badass mafia, type Don.
And guess what? If you look at anyone, if you like a Harvey Dent, made up character, but anywho, anybody with a squeaky clean past that is all about right and truth and fighting for the Americans and who's just going to do everything by the book and I'm going to come up and lead this country, I'm sorry, we kill them. We do. They go nowhere. This is why we have Republicans and Democrats, and we've never had a third party person win because we kill them. We being both sides, that it can't happen. You almost have to play this sort of dirty game. And I don't like it, and it's not right, but it is what it is. So anytime someone's like, oh, well, someone's a bad dude or someone does it, show me someone who isn't, and by all means, we'll all get on board.
Yeah, but if somebody said, hey, we're going to start doing business legit, we're going to make it authentic, we're only going to invite the people who are truthful and have moral character, I'm all for that. But you're oblivious if you think that ideal is being pursued by anyone other than what standard you're putting on one guy, right? And that's all we're pointing out here.
Yeah, Donnie says, no matter who's put in office, you're not going to make everyone happy.
Right. He is an adjudicated rapist because it was a civil case. But rapist...
I don't think it was even rape. Wasn't it... Oh my gosh, what's the term? Was it assault? I can't remember what the actual terminology is. We'll have to look it up. But yeah.
Rapist would be a legal term that requires you to have been convicted for it after going through, a court. And so to have a civil case that used language that is similar to rape isn't the same thing.
Right.
So that's all we're, do we think that he had relationships that were dredged up after the fact? Like the timing is what tells the story, right? If before you're running for politics, something that's 20 years old comes up all of a sudden look at the motivation of the timing of when things happen. And if you settle a civil case, no matter what it says, pay them off to go away. That's part of the, the political theater.
Yeah.
The political strategy and process.
And again, I'm sorry. This is just where two sides disagree. They want to make that such a big deal when there are other people that are like, I don't care what he did in his past. I need him to help me. I need us to have this. This is more important. This is more important. This is more important than what a scumbag did 20 years ago. It just is. And you might not think it is, but clearly a lot of people do. It's beating a dead horse.
Let's see.
Carter says, I lived in California for 35 years. I welcome a deep dive. His past is quite disgusting.
Gavin Newsom.
Yeah. All I know is I know he was pretty open about an affair he had with like they said it was his best friend, and then somebody else said like campaign manager or somebody, and that's all I really know. Yeah.
Not surprised.
You deep dive anyone, you're going to find dirt.
Yeah. And so like really from a standards, what is a disqualifying attribute for a politician? And I don't think there are any. I literally think that depending on which team you're on, you'd be willing to not, be happy about it.
Yeah.
But you'd let them run for office after some forgiveness. I can't think of anything that you would really say, oh no, we've got standards. This is way below the office of the president.
Like, didn't Biden's daughter write in a journal about him trying to shower with her? And like, there's something on everyone you can find.
Yeah. And that's why I don't give it credibility, because when did we hear about the diary? Right when he was running for office. And then it becomes part of the theater of discrediting someone for a historical event and whatever. So I don't buy. I mean, I buy that it probably happened, but I question when it was presented for me to know about it.
Yeah. So Julie sort of answered my question. If you go up a smidgen. I asked her, how are you going to deep dive? She says, deep dive, background, legislation passed, management skills, oratory skills, and ability to transmit honest and transparent goals. I'm sorry, that seems vague to me. Like, that still seems like you're going to put your own bias in it. Like, management skills, I want to know what you're looking at specifically. You could say, well, CNN said he has poor management skills. That's not you doing a deep dive. That's you saying somebody told you this. Like, I want to know what your game plan is, Julie, and what sources you're looking at, because I don't really trust that they will be non-biased.
And she says that it was rape. Don't try to gloss over it. I'm not. I'm saying there's a process where when something comes out of a conviction, something not as part of a civil trial.
Yeah. We're not saying he didn't do anything to anyone. We're talking about the legal terminology and what came from it.
Yeah. And if you charge it's not fair that something was an accusation. It's not good enough for me for you, because you say everything about him.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
If I believed everything that you think he is versus something that it went through evidence and jury and before a judge and through the whole process, if it gets beyond that, and we can look at the evidence and say, oh, dude, he's a rapist because he's a convicted rapist, not a suggested that he's a rapist or almost a rapist. It's that word carries weight with it. So if he sexually assaulted someone and it went through an actual criminal court for sexual assault, then I buy it. He's guilty of sexual assault. If it's a civil case and a football player does something and it's there's a settlement in a civil case, well, it didn't go through the same standards of processes that will make me feel like, okay, he had sex with someone in a bar and then she accused and he wanted her to go away. Was this could there not be another reason why civil court there was a settlement? Because there's not just one. It's not like a settlement does not admit that you're guilty of the thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen until it's been convicted beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah. And when it's the same source that says he's a racist and people don't believe he's a racist, then again, you're not going to get very far with even attempting.
I wholeheartedly believe there needs to be a third party candidate, a true centrist who holds core values of both Democrats and Republicans. Could be the silver bullet, someone who doesn't subscribe to the extremist wing of either party. Well, I agree with you. I don't think that is possible in political climate because we're so concentrated into left-right. Who's going to be the first that allows people to get sliced off and hold a centrist? I would hope almost would have to be public sentiment would have to give up on the two-party system, and then there'd be enough of the people willing to go into the independent. Like if I ran as an independent, I would not get elected because there's not enough people who would, they'd look at me and say, it's a wasted vote. If you vote for me, I got to go to the person that's second best and give them my vote so they have a chance of winning. And we're stuck in that feedback loop.
Didn't Vance used to be Democrat?
Was he? I don't know.
Somebody tell me. I feel like I heard somewhere Vance was once a Democrat, or I don't know if he was a Democrat. I know he was once outspoken against Trump. Do you hold any more weight to anyone that was on one side and went to the other, as though maybe they can see both sides more clearly?
No, I think it's more of a person that that stood by their own principles, and as parties moved away from them.
I would say, regardless of the label,
right?
Republican, Democrat, this is what they were, and if that means they have to now change their name, so be it. I kind of hold more weight on that rather
Someone
than
willing.
just.
Yeah, I could say some of those more like the Fettermans now, and Rand Paul, and some of those people who, McCloskey and those rhinos that side with the Democrats. That's not the same to me.
Yeah,
I don't think their positions. I don't think they were forged in a Republican principle. I think they're just Democrats who happen to need to run as a Republican. But those ones that can go either way, depending on how it aligns with their principles, those people have a little bit more of my respect.
Yeah, I agree. Brian says, show us the court case judgment where it says rape.
Yeah, that's what is the red line?
What is your red line? Is that like what line?
Yeah, like when it gets to a certain point, I either now and convinced something is true, or the red line saying if it goes beyond this, and I'm never voting for a Republican or I'm never voting for a Democrat. So tell me what you mean by red line about where I would not vote for somebody. I would say convicted murderer would probably be a good one to start with. Convicted rapist, that would probably be another one.
If they were caught plotting with other foreign people to mismanage things in our country.
Yeah, traitors would be a big one for me. If you worked with the enemy against the interests of the United States, that would be a big one.
I don't even like people that are clearly in the pocket of big corporations or people that are able to influence you. Like, well, I have to help this. And some people may say that could be Trump. I'm going to help my buddies because, powerful money.
Yeah,
I got to
that
cater
sort
to
of goes
them.
along with the centrist voting, where in an idealistic world, you have conflict of interest that
right.
you bow out if you have too many of them.
Yeah.
If the game was being played without conflicts of interest, I would say, yes, that's what I want. But I don't think that's possible. I think everybody's captured.
Which is why we have an entire fund, the Hush Money Fund.
The Hush Money Fund.
It's a thing.
People need to stop the Republican or Democrat voting and just vote for the best person for the job. I agree, but that's not going to happen in my lifetime. There's nothing honest about Newsom. He's a politician, and I think honesty is like 10th on the priority list, I would say. Let's see. Yeah, Trump was part of the whole Epstein ring. You say that in absolute terms, and I want to know if anybody was a participant. I'm interested in seeing anybody who took advantage of young girls that way to find themselves in jail. But to pick that guy and say, that he was within that ring, I'm just not buying it. His criminal case was dismissed because he was to become the sitting president, and Merrick Garland was a piece of shit. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But again, that's speculative, and that's not going to fly in Joe's courtroom today.
Matthew, I'm curious. Not that this matters or is here nor there, but just out of sheer curiosity, let's say the Epstein files were completely released, and Trump was involved, and Biden was involved. Mm-hmm. Who would you want to take over as leader of this country? I'm just curious, Matthew. If both big leaders on both sides were actually involved, who's stepping in?
So the thing is, I believe, and I would go a second thing. Like, let's just say you picked out the people that were involved in it directly. And of course, I think they should go to prison right away. Mm-hmm. But I also want to go for the second tier of people who are aware that was the case and they didn't say anything. They were insulators and protectors of the people that they knew had broken the law. Yeah. I would take everybody and en masse push them all in the dumpster and elect all brand new people that have no connected to anything. So I don't even know the name of the person that I would want to be there, because if you're close enough to politics, I know that either you were involved or at least you knew enough to let the rest of us know who was involved.
Hide
and
it.
you didn't. So scrap them all.
There's nobody.
Nobody. Bob Smith, who's shoveling his driveway right now.
You're the new leader of this country.
That is the new leader of the country, and he can't do any worse of a job.
Would you step in, Joe?
Never in a million years.
Why? What have you got to lose? You're literally like, I'm Joe Schmo. I wasn't elected. I'm not a politician. I got plucked into this role because all of our leaders are gone. Here's what we're going to do.
Maybe. I'll give
What are they going to do? Bash your background?
Let me watch the tape, and I'll talk to a couple of political advisors and see if
are they going to find someone else with a squeakier clean background, or they're going to bash you? Everyone.
How quickly, if we did that, if we scrapped the entire system, put all brand new people, no advantages or anywhere, everybody is just uniformly unconnected with everyone else.
Reset button.
How long before voters, right, would push politics back into the same situation, or right? Because is it a mirror of what we want, or is it going incongruent with what voters want? I think it would be exactly the same way that it was in 10 years.
I was going to say 2.5 seconds.
Yes.
We'll break it.
Matthew says also words Musk and Trump said about voting machines should be looked at. Yeah, I think investigating the accuracy of our voting. And the only reason I say it is when anybody uses absolute terms like fraud doesn't happen, right? I question it.
Red flag.
Because it's red flagging me. If you say it's happening and we actively fight against it using XYZ, I can get an idea of how hard you don't want that fraud to happen based on what you're willing to do to make sure that it doesn't happen. And all the people who say, let's do the things that increase the probability of voting fraud, then I don't trust you, because you benefit from the fraud. You have a conflict of interest, and I know you're not going to try hard to curtail it, and you want even more of it to happen based on what you just said.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, look at, and I know I bash the media a lot, but it is true. Bad, negative headlines sell. Negative news is infinitely more attention grabbing and action seeking more than positive news. So knowing that the news media thrives off of sowing discord, why do people put so much trust into it? That is like the epitome of I have something to gain by either being untruthful, by stirring conflict, by spreading negativity, or flat out lying. I benefit from that. I benefit by not giving the full picture of things, yet we put so much stock into what they tell us.
What's that syndrome where you fall in love with the hostage taker?
Oh my God, I literally just saw the word the other day. Stockholm syndrome? Yeah.
That's what it is. So it's like you go home and look at your paycheck like, this government sucks and it can't do anything right. It's mismanaged over here. And it's like, hey, healthcare's let's have the government do it. It's like, everything in your life that touches the government becomes a complete cluster, but yet something comes up and you give it to the hostage taker again? Is that insanity?
Yep.
Dennis says, but look at the emotional value, Joe.
Ron Paul or not at all?
Yes.
That's a catchy slogan.
Youngstown Studio, how close do you think you really are to finally breaking the two-party system? Not close at all.
Unfortunately, not close. But we're trying, Brian. Oh, that was a happy accident.
There is another bumper sticker.
We're trying, Brian.
Julie says, I don't watch any mainstream media. If I hear a headline, I check it out by looking at state records, court docs, watch debates and public appearances, and check out what they say. Julie, one of our most reasonable, educated opinions, and is very reasonable.
And dare I say, Julie, you should add to that, which you maybe already do. If I see a headline, read the actual article, then go do all those other things. And if you find that article was full of shit, discredit them completely forever.
And learn the theme of when you start getting those inconsistencies, figuring out like why was this common knowledge that the Monopoly guy had a monocle? Why does everybody feel that way, even in spite that a lot of this stuff that you've accepted without having evidence? Like if there are 1,000 data points that you have not investigated and there's 2 that you have and found out they were a little accurate, you almost got to look at the 1,000 you think you know that you didn't do research on yet as a little suspect.
Yeah. Yep. Julie says, Vance called Trump Hitler. He should have trusted his first instincts. Or did he call him that, then get more information and say, oh, God, I was wrong?
You did the same thing. And any reasonable person is allowed to change their mind about things. And maybe they were too quick to judge. Maybe they used public sentiment and what was in the headlines as an authority. And once they got to know somebody, changed their mind a little bit. Or, as I know Julie would argue, maybe because it's now his boss that he can't think he's Hitler anymore, and he definitely has to stop accusing him of being a fascist Hitler. Could be that too. And all possibilities are on the table.
All possibilities. Brian says, Youngstown Studio. Oh, we read that one already. Grifting.
Yes.
What is grifting again? I've heard that a grifter.
So think of scam artists, people who are cons, right? People who grift the system mean that they take advantage, they manipulate a system for their own benefit. A grift is what a con man would do. He'd set up systems, have a sophisticated means of shaking something down for their own benefit. That is a grift.
Okay. I've seen people use that term.
Matt says neither of them put them in jail. That was your Biden versus
neither of them put them all in
Epstein
jail.
Deal.
Yeah, well, yeah, put them all in jail. But then who, Matt? Who's
me? Joe's
Matthew, would you vote for Joe?
Joe's going to be the default president of the United States, and I represent all Americans. See, I'm practicing my stuff.
Have you ever seen Boondock Saints?
Yes.
You just reminded me when he's like, me, I'm the guy. Do you remember that scene?
Yes.
Anywho, it's such a good movie. Brian says this discussion, as well as many, many others, are the exact reason we need term limits for every politician.
Agree with that. Neither one. That's not a choice. The problem is that there may be a potential candidates that were Epstein clients. Yes. She just called you a schmo.
Joe Schmo.
You did too, but I won't take offense to that.
Joe
Brian
Schmo.
says people are all just lemmings to be mainstream media machines. Stockholm syndrome. Thank you for that. Yeah. Anyway, so and that's like, does that cause when you say the system's stupid, everybody's dishonest, we're all just lemmings, we're going along with it? Does that motivate you to want to make changes? If you knew that it was futile, that there's no way that you're going to make a big enough impact with the way things are right now, why even try? Then you just you're relegated to just playing the game and watching another decade go by with it being jacked up, unless you do what he said, which is scrap it, term limits, wash these people out, and then at least you have a better chance of things changing where they're all different people then.
And in this climate too, it's pretty much impossible. Not only can you not get anywhere because they're going to defame you, they're going to twist your words, they're going to make you out to be a bad person, even if you're not. They're going to do everything they can to destroy your credibility or make people distrust you. And if none of that works, they'll kill you. Literally. We've seen it.
Yep.
So it's like, what
do
you do?
It would be a better... See, libertarians are freaking crazy. So I need to actually lead the Libertarian Party first to wash out all the crazies who are...
I was going to say, what? Are you crazy?
What?
I was going to say, are you crazy?
I'm crazy, but in a reasonable crazy.
Okay.
And so, like, I don't believe in anarchy. I know that there has to be a level of management that can ensure the responsibilities in small government, right? So it's not like a blast government out and run anarchy rule. That would be worse than having being overruled is underruled, right? But there has to be a way to take a big machine and not destroy it, but through attrition, make it smaller. And there has to be a principle that the people who vote libertarian I hate the machine as it is, but I know if the machine is a certain size, I'd be able to tolerate it. I'd be able to put up with things I disagree with as long as done in small doses, have a short horizon, and any decision they make, people can bounce back from. when it's integrated in every life, it manages the economy. It not only manages the economy, it influences the economy. Like the government should be so small that even if it dabbled a little bit, we would barely notice because it's a ripple rather than a tsunami. In the investment world, when you have institutional, traders, right? You're trading 10 shares. They're trading 1 million shares at a time. You're ineffective because their movements can actually shape where the stock market goes versus everybody's limited to their 10 share trading.
Mhm.
And that way, if you have a bunch of people that are trading shares, then the market moves, but it's authentic because you didn't have one whale pushing something in a complete direction. So if we can shrink government down where we can't feel their effects on a daily basis, where they can't jack up the economy, jack up with wars, being weak enough in all the right ways that people are ruling it rather than the government's ruling it, but in the ways like having a military that is as big as it is right now, that, you need that to be able to, defend yourself against other people who aren't playing the same game as you, external forces rather than internal forces. I'm ready to hear that plan out, but we are, centuries away from that ever being something that is even possible.
Yeah. Yeah, we are so far gone from the idea of government being leadership. And they're just the bosses of us now, if that makes sense.
That is true.
And it's supposed to be leading the people, working for the people. And it's just become this, I am your new boss, dictator, whatever. Not literally, but it's become something I don't think it was ever meant to be. And we can't do anything about it.
I want to change topics real quick.
Okay.
The 3I Atlas comet.
What?
The comet that was rummaging through our solar system. A little bit of an anomaly, not normal of the rocks that usually come through our solar system. It had not a collision course. It came really close to Mars as it zipped by. Then it ducked behind the sun, right? We couldn't see it anymore with our telescopes. And it just now came on the other side of the sun. And so we're all watching this.
I've not even heard about this. I haven't been watching it.
So we are watching it now to see if it deviates from its course, because it should. If it was a comet, it's going to spill off on the other side of the solar system and continue back into interstellar space. And that's it. If it is intelligent, where it now uses the sun's gravitational pull to change courses and come towards Earth, we might have our first visitor. Or it might just start shooting lasers at us and destroying the Earth. That could happen too. So you have 3 choices, and I'm only going to give you 3. It's just a rock, and it's going to exit just like it entered. 2, it's a spacecraft, and it's going to come visit us. Or 3, this is a probe of some kind, or it has hostile intentions or observing intentions.
You're saying as of now, we don't know?
We don't know. No.
There's something.
Yeah.
Flying through space.
Yes.
That might head this way, and it may be a natural occurring.
Yeah. Let me give you the anomalies.
Okay.
Okay. These are things that are weird about it. It's the fastest object that has ever come into our solar system. So
if it is a comet, it's faster than any other comet.
Yeah, it's about the same size as the rock that destroyed the dinosaurs. It's about as big as Manhattan Island, so it's pretty beefy. So that's number 1. Its size and speed is different than ones that have come before. 2, the composition of the rock is an alloy rather than a just nickel or whatever. So from our standpoint, we've never seen that metal naturally occurring. So it's composed of something that still could, in other circumstances, become an alloy through whatever, but we've never seen it in it. So anomaly number 3. The way that it entered our solar system, like if our solar system is a plane this way, usually they'll come through the solar system from the top or bottom or take a whatever. This is perfectly aligned with the plane of our orbits of our planet. So it's a weird angle that it came into our solar system. Let's see. when it was approaching the sun. If it was a comet, when it's in interstellar space, it's super cold. And when it starts nearing our sun, it starts to warm up. And so the direction of the sun towards it usually creates a tail off of whatever side is opposing the sun, because the solar winds pick up dust and some of the material as it burns off to the back. This was inverted, where there was actual tail that was pointing towards the sun rather than away from it. So that would be another anomaly. So there's lots of weirdness in this. And so that's why looking at, and it still could just be a comet that exits. What it does next will really be sort of like the next data point, whether or not this is an alien spacecraft or this is just a comet.
Are we sure that our data is correct?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
You know, when we say things like, this is something we've never seen before, this is something we've never seen it do before, are we even correct in we properly measured it?
Well,
maybe we were wrong and that's why we haven't seen it.
When I say anomaly, I mean it's different than anything else we've tried to measure. So if we measured the the elements or the materials that made up the comet, this one is different. Whether or not the details of what was measured is accurate, it's still not the same as other ones that have come here. So are you gonna
Julie says, great, now I have more to worry about. That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was thinking. Chicken says it is behaving perfectly normal.
Okay.
Is it though? Because it sounds like
it's fast.
Yeah.
Again, those are the behaviors that are anomalous. The tail pointing in the opposite direction when it was approaching the sun, the speed that it was coming in. And again, we've only had 3 of these interstellar visitors. So we only have 2 other data points to compare to. So for it to be different than the other 2 we've measured would not be like, are there fast ones? Are there slow ones? Where did it get so fast? How did it get so fast? It could have been in another solar system where it got a gravitational slingshot and it sped up as it entered ours. There's a ton of other explanations.
So there's like a million other reasons before we get to alien space.
But it's fun to
it is
watch.
Fun. Yeah, Chicken says these wild conspiracies of anything, which is like a 0.0000001%, it would go for Jupiter. It wouldn't come here. But if we have been tracking these types of objects for about 8 years, so we have very little data to say it's different than normal.
Exactly.
Chicken says, thank you, Kelin. Yeah, so the fact that if it's one of 3, then yes, very... to me, not enough data to know how different it actually is or how uncommon it could be.
But what do we do when we see something that's different than other things? We learn from it, right? We look at it as saying, oh, this one's different. And we get curious and try to figure out why this one behaved differently. So jumping to theories, I didn't use absolute. I don't know if it's just a comet that's going to whatever, but I have sort of like 3 little benchmarks. Whatever it does next is going to make it more probable that it's one or the other thing. So if it just guides around the sun and it takes a regular gravitational course and it speeds off into the other side of the solar system and it just goes back into space, I'm like, yeah, there was just a comet that behaved weird. Let's figure that out. If it zooms past us and takes a 90 degree and starts heading towards Earth, and we're like, uh-oh, let's take a look and be very suspicious of that thing.
Okay, I have multiple questions here. Do you remember last year or earlier this year? I don't even remember when it was, when all those huge drones were around New Jersey. I just saw an article recently saying what those were. Did you hear that? Apparently it was a company. A guy owned a company, was manufacturing these things, was testing them out. I don't remember why or what he does. But that's what it was. That's all it was, is these were mine. I make them, that I'm this company, and I was doing these testing things. So my question is, why was the government so adamant that they didn't know what it was if it was a guy who owns a company who made them and was testing them? Could that not have been something we found out right away if it was such a small deal, number one? Number two, do you think there are any truly plausible examples of alien life forms in any way being involved with our planet, being here, almost contacting, whatever, that could tie into why we should even almost consider that this thing is anything other than a normal comet.
I like your tie-in because, this is my personal views. Again, this is not a scientific presentation by any means, but in the 50s, when, aliens were visiting and crashing and we were discovering all kinds of things we didn't understand. I think there were a lot. So a couple shows ago, or a couple months ago on a show, we talked about like, there's been people who have studied what the repercussions from everybody just being told that we have aliens, what it would do to religion, what it would do to politics, what it would do to our economies, what disruption it would have if you knew the actual truth. And when they say there's a 90% chance that religion would get whatever and, governments would fall and whatever, then you look at that and say, yeah, the people can't handle that truth.
Yeah.
Did you hear it in your head?
You can't handle the truth.
And so if you're like, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to mock and make it a spectacle where people who think that thing, we're going to like take a little chunk out. So if you have a really smart person and they say it, we're going to just make it so that it's believable for a crazy person. And that way, when you do have a landing, then we allow the public to dismantle. We don't have to do anything. The public's going to already put you in Crazyville and nobody's going to believe what you said. Oh, I was abducted. Oh, sure. What were you on that day?
Yeah.
Right? And so the government uses naturally occurring things as a cover for the truths that can't be disseminated because of what would happen to society if everybody knew the actual truth.
Yeah.
And so if there was a private company who was testing things and the public was like, oh, it's probably aliens, the government's like, okay, this should be get some cover fire. So all we have to do is look like we're confused about what's going on for a little while and lay down some more cover fire so that if we get visited by an actual drone, we can always just tag it in with the thing that naturally occurred. And everybody would be so confused about, no, I see it. There's an alien thing there. Yeah, just one of those drones, that kind of thing. So it benefits to have the public do the confusing so the government doesn't even have to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I've mentioned a story before, but long story short, my husband, when he was active duty military, showed me a newspaper one time from a deployment he was on years prior. And he told me the story of what happened. We were here. These people did this. These people had to shoot at them. We had to kill them. This happened, blah, blah, blah. Then he handed me the newspaper article about it, and it was completely different. Mm-hmm. It was a total lie. And I was like, but that's not what happened. And he's like, right. But then why did they why did they lie? And he's like, because the American people couldn't handle the truth.
Okay.
If
so
we said what actually
give you a hypothetical.
Happened. Yeah.
President Kelin. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So I'm an advisor and I've been looking out to space and I see an asteroid that's coming right at us. And I said, Miss President, let me tell you that we've got about 2 weeks to live. This asteroid is on a collision course and we're doomed. It's coming right at us. There's 100% chance everybody is going to die. Right. And and then you bring in another advisor. Now I'm the spreadsheet guy and I'm saying, if you go on the news tonight and tell everybody you're going to have panic and chaos, you're going to have all of your cities burning. Let's not do that to the people. Let's let them live in obliviousness for the next 2 weeks. It's not going to getting them to panic is not going to change anything.
Yeah.
So are you the president or like, we just got to tell them the truth. I'm going to do it anyway against my advisors. Or are you like, yeah, you're kind of right. They're not going to be able to handle this. And it's going to make things terribly worse. The only value in it is I can say that I will tell the truth, but I'm going to be dead anyway. What do you do, Miss Kelin?
I'm leaning more towards not telling them.
Not telling them. So there is a reasonable there's a reasonable excuse to not tell the truth if the effect is more negative than telling the truth. Yeah. So if you were like, hey, I know everybody that's on the Epstein list. And when I say this to the public, government is going to be absolutely destroyed and we're going to lose everybody in Congress. We're going to lose the White House. It's going to be panic and chaos. Do we tell the truth about the Epstein files then? And then you're going to be the same logic. You're going to have to put it through. Do I tell the truth knowing that the repercussions are death, destruction, and our country being obliterated? Do you keep it secret and allow United States to live another day?
Probably.
Okay. So there is an understandable, reasonable reason for lying. And the government has just assembled an entire pocketbook of good reasons to lie because you will not react well if I told you the truth.
Yeah. We don't need more civil unrest over an interstellar object that very well is just a fancy rock. Brian says wholeheartedly, the Mayans are the perfect example. Julie, the movie Don't Look Up. Julie says, would you want to know the truth?
I would want to know, because if you told me the truth that I had 2 weeks to live, I would do many different things. But on the aggregate, not everybody would do that. They would go crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And
well, that's another question. Should they tell or should they not? And do you want to know, but do you want to know and you still want others not to know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd be like, maybe I want to know, but I don't want the general public to know.
So what would really happen if the asteroid's coming in and you've got 2 weeks? The government would go into a preservation mode where they would invite certain people well before the public even knew this was happening. They would invite people to go to Colorado, and they would be in a bunker that is in the mountains, stocked with enough food for 60 days worth of survival, and then also the materials to restart population after the destruction, giving us a chance for human beings to survive. They can do that when nobody else knows, so the special people would be plucked out to restart civilization. There's been 1,000 movies with this plot line, but that's exactly what happened. And then after the preserved would happen, now you feel more free to tell the rest of the people, because now at least human beings are protected. You have a chance of survival. If you said it right from the get-go, saying, hey, here's the deal. We're all going to die in 2 weeks, and we're going to pick some people out. You would never be able to get that. The bunker would be overridden. There would be bombers coming in to open the bunker.
You'd almost have to have everybody in place in your bunker without anyone knowing. And before you shut the lid, be like, by the way, you're all dying in 2 weeks.
See ya. Exactly how it would go down. Right.
Good luck to you all.
Now, if you and Julie want something else to worry about, how many situations on purpose are kept from people?
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, they're sewn up and taken, but you will never know that they even happen.
A ton.
Mm-hmm. So back to
a ton. I can think of it right off the bat. I can think of at least 2 just from my husband's perspective. So who knows,
thousands of
holy cow.
So the alien invasion part, I believe that there were probably encounters and things that have happened in the past that secretly sewn up and negotiated and dealt with without having the public have complete civil unrest happen as a result. And that's just my beliefs. So for this to be another visitor, because they haven't for what you and I know, they haven't visited in quite some time, right? They may have hovered and.
Well, and here's the thing. I feel like everybody sort of has this mental image of an alien, like we see in Hollywood, alien looking like alien coming here. That's so clearly an alien. What if they look like us? What if they are here? What if they're interacting? What if it's like, oh, we can't let anyone know there's an alien locked up in Area 51? No. What if it's like, this person is one and we're hiding it?
Yeah. And what if aliens look exactly like us because we are the natural, the natural evolution of what biology is? And so let's say Mars at one time was habitable and Earth was the one that couldn't be inhabited. Right.
Yeah.
And so everybody was like, hey, the atmosphere is disappearing and looks like some asteroids. We're going to launch a couple people over to that rock. It's not habitable, but we're going to make it habitable. So what if Mars was the original home and we all abandoned it and everybody went extinct on Mars and we're the result of a planet jump that happened 1 billion years ago? And we look the same as our Mars, brethren. But what now, taking that into account, what if we, a civilization was, and this is like the plot of Superman, I think, where their star was going to get destroyed. So they jumped one of theirs over to Mars that predated that one. And so humanity just kind of has populations everywhere. And to have them exchange some bloodlines or technologies every once in a while is just part of the status quo. And they up there are like, nobody would want to know this is happening because they get too scared. So we're just going to, like when Apple comes up with a new technology or Tesla, Elon Musk could be one of those aliens who were put here to bring new technologies to spark more innovations. You never know.
It's funny you said, I think this is the plot to Superman, because I was just thinking about a scene in Batman. I saw Carter said Trump would save the day. Wouldn't it be interesting if I can't remember which Batman it was. It was a Christian Bale one. remember when he had to act like a jerk to save everyone? Like he was at a party and he knew these people were coming and they were all going to be killed. So to get him out, he pretended to be drunk and cause a scene, and he got real rude just to turn people off, and they wanted to leave his party because he was trying to save their lives.
Mm-hmm.
What if?
100%. That's the manipulation, the sophisticated lawyer manipulation, right? To an end, controlling the scenario.
Like I'll be the bad guy. I'll take the heat. I'll make you hate me because I know I'm saving your lives.
But in the movies, it's always the noble person that's doing that. And they're doing it for intentions. Take us, and those people are probably not noble, right?
Yeah.
They're not. The hero is probably a bad person. So we have a villain in that same circumstance.
But what if that's not the case? What if all the negativity and all the hate for the government we talk about and all the ways that we think that they're for themselves and not for the people is actually the ruse, and they're really the positive, noble people,
Maybe.
the superheroes, and we are all under this misguided scheme to distrust them, which has been done on purpose so they can save us from.
And they've been trying to help us all along, and all we've done is badger them and make their life miserable. Yeah, that's a great movie right there.
I feel like we just described God. God's like, now you're getting it.
I have my doubts about Joe. I do too, and I am Joe, and I still doubt Joe.
Brian said she's literally describing the Men in Black movie.
Yes, and that's, I think little hints, little like, you can't handle me just saying it, but I'm going to hide things in plain sight. Like not Lance Armstrong, the other Armstrong, Neil Armstrong, right?
Yeah.
His name backwards is Mr. Alien in there, right? So in plain sight that he was it's Gorst Mr. Alien. So
whoa.
So he was an alien all along, and he was one of the, teach us how to get to space imports. So
oh my God, I just had another tangent. What was it?
Go for it.
Men in Black movies. Oh yeah. Don't you find it strange that some parts of your life you have no memory of?
Mm-hmm.
No, you could say through natural evolution and the aging process, your brain can't hold on to every single moment of every single day. But what if 2 Men in Black came with their little activation
look
thingy?
Here, Kelin.
Yeah. Look here. Gave you a new memory. Off you went.
Yeah.
Maybe we've lived countless days with alien invasions or things happening, and they were like,
yep,
hey everybody, log
Statue
on to this
of Liberty.
Log on to this screen, sign in and look at it.
Yep. Hey, there's an eclipse happening. Everybody look at the sun right now, and then zip, everybody in mass who's looking at the eclipse gets a new memory. We're on to him, Kelin. I'm telling you.
Seriously. I love how BJ's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're out of here. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Bye.
Have a great one.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.